They burned the libraries, they rewrote the maps, they renamed the cities, and they told you Africa had no history worth knowing. But what if I told you that while Europe was still living in the Dark Ages, Africa had universities that taught mathematics, astronomy, and medicine? What if I told you there were African kings so powerful, so feared, that even the mightiest empires on earth came to them with gifts? What if the history you were taught was a lie? Today, we are going back to the truth they tried to bury, back to the kingdoms they tried to erase, back to the Africa they never wanted you to know. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will never see this continent the same way again. For centuries, the story of Africa has been told by outsiders, by colonizers, by people who had every reason to make this land look small, backward, and empty of greatness. But Africa is not small. It never was. Covering over 30 million square kilometers, Africa is larger than the United States, China, India, and all of Europe combined. And for most of human history, it was here, on this vast, ancient land, that the greatest civilizations on Earth were born. Today, we are going to travel through time. We are going to visit 5 kingdoms so powerful, so advanced, so magnificent, that their very existence threatens the story that was told about Africa. These are the African kingdoms that Europe tried to erase. Let us begin in West Africa. The year is 1324. A man is preparing for a journey. But this is no ordinary man and no ordinary journey. His name is Mansa Musa, and he is about to go on a pilgrimage to Mecca. He will travel with 60,000 men, 12,000 personal servants, 500 herald slaves, each carrying a staff of pure gold weighing over 2.7 kilograms, and 80 camels, each carrying between 50 and 300 pounds of gold dust. When Mansa Musa passed through Cairo, Egypt, he was so generous. He gave away so much gold to the poor, to traders, to strangers on the street, that the price of gold in Egypt crashed and took 12 years to recover. Mansa Musa was not just the richest man in Africa, he was, by modern estimates, the richest human being who has ever lived, worth approximately $400 billion in today's money. And he ruled the Mali Empire, a kingdom that stretched across modern-day Mali, Senegal, Gambia, Guinea, and beyond. Under the Mali Empire, the city of Timbuktu became one of the greatest centers of learning in the entire world, with over 25,000 university students, with libraries containing hundreds of thousands of manuscripts on science, medicine, law, and philosophy. This was not a kingdom of savages. This was a civilization that could teach the world. And yet, how many schools taught you about Mansa Musa? How many history books put him on the cover? The silence is not an accident. Now let us travel north, to the Nile Valley, to a kingdom that did something extraordinary. They conquered Egypt. The Kingdom of Kush, located in what is now Sudan, was one of the earliest and most powerful states in the ancient world. And around 744 BC, the Kushite king Piye led his army northward and defeated the Egyptian pharaohs, establishing the 25th dynasty of Egypt. That means for nearly 100 years, Egypt was ruled by African kings from Kush. These were the Black Pharaohs. They built more pyramids than Egypt. Over 255 pyramids still stand in Sudan today, more than in all of Egypt. They had a unique writing system called Meroitic script, which we are still working to fully decode. They traded across the ancient world with Egypt, Greece, Rome, Arabia, and beyond. And when the Romans came, they did not dare attack Kush directly. They negotiated. They made peace, because they respected the power of Kush. The Black Pharaohs of Kush ruled over one of the most advanced civilizations of the ancient world. But you will rarely see them in documentaries about ancient Egypt. You will rarely see their faces, dark, proud, powerful, celebrated the way they deserve. The erasure of Kush from history is not an oversight. It is a choice. Now come south, deep into southern Africa. In the 11th century, in what is now the country of Zimbabwe, a magnificent city began to rise, not built of mud and thatch, built of stone, massive, carefully placed granite blocks, with no mortar, no cement, just perfect engineering, walls 11 meters high, walls 5 meters thick. This was Great Zimbabwe, and at its peak, it was home to over 18,000 people. The rulers of Great Zimbabwe controlled the gold trade routes of southern Africa. Their wealth reached all the way to China. Chinese porcelain has been found in the ruins. Arab traders wrote about this kingdom in the 10th century, describing a land of extraordinary wealth and sophisticated governance. But when European colonizers arrived in the 19th century, they refused to believe Africans built it. They literally published books claiming it was built by Phoenicians, by Arabs, by ancient Israelites, anyone but Africans. A German geologist named Karl Mauch even claimed it was the biblical city of Ophir, built by the Queen of Sheba. Why? Because accepting that Africans built it would destroy the entire colonial narrative that Africa needed to be civilized by outsiders. Today, the archaeological evidence is absolute. Great Zimbabwe was built by the ancestors of the Shona people, built by Africans, full stop, and the country of Zimbabwe took its name from this great kingdom as a reclaiming of identity, of history, of pride. Back to West Africa, to the largest empire Africa has ever seen, the Songhai Empire. At its height in the late 15th and early 16th centuries, Songhai stretched across 1.4 million square kilometers, covering parts of modern-day Mali, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, Guinea, and Burkina Faso. Its cities were among the most advanced in the world. Timbuktu, yes, the same Timbuktu from the Mali Empire, continued to flourish under Songhai rule. Its Sankore University had over 25,000 students from across Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. They studied theology, law, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and history. The Emperor Askia the Great, who ruled from 1493, established a professional civil service, standardized weights and measures, and created a banking and credit system. This was a modern state. In the 15th century, the Songhai Empire fell not because Africans were weak, it fell because of invasion by a Moroccan army equipped with guns provided by Spain and Portugal. The introduction of gunpowder weapons from Europe and the Middle East tipped the balance of power. Not intelligence, not civilization, not culture. Guns. That is all it took. And from the ashes of Songhai, the Atlantic slave trade would soon tear the rest of West Africa apart. But before that, for centuries, Songhai stood as proof that Africa was not behind the world. Africa was leading it. And finally, we come to the Kingdom of Benin. Located in what is now southern Nigeria, the Kingdom of Benin was one of the oldest and most sophisticated states in West Africa. Founded around the 11th century, it reached its peak between the 13th and 19th centuries, and it produced something that stopped the entire Western art world in its tracks: the Benin bronzes. Over 3,000 bronze plaques, sculptures, and works of art depicting the history, culture, royalty, and daily life of the Benin people, with a level of artistry that European experts initially refused to believe was African. When British soldiers raided and burned the Kingdom of Benin in 1897, a brutal act called the Punitive Expedition, They looted these bronzes and brought them to Europe. Today, they sit in the British Museum. In museums in Germany, the Netherlands, the United States, stolen and kept. But the Kingdom of Benin was not just about art. It had a complex political system with checks and balances. It had guilds of craftsmen. It had urban planning, with one European visitor in the 16th century describing Benin City as larger and more orderly than Amsterdam. Larger and more orderly than Amsterdam. In the 16th century, this was not a primitive society. This was a civilization. 5 kingdoms, 5 civilizations, 5 proofs that everything you were taught about Africa was incomplete at best and deliberately distorted at worst. The Mali Empire, the Kingdom of Kush, Great Zimbabwe, the Songhai Empire, the Kingdom of Benin. These were not myths. These were not legends. These were real, documented, undeniable, and there are dozens more. This is just the beginning. Because here at the Open Savannah, we believe the African story deserves to be told. Fully, honestly, powerfully, no filters, no Western narrative, just the wide open truth. If this video opened your eyes, share it, because the people around you deserve to know this too. Subscribe to the Open Savannah, because we are just getting started. And remember, a people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots.